It's time to kick off another podcast English lesson. So boot up your iPod and fire up your headphones. We're about to dive into a bunch of phrasal verbs that talk about starting something.
Welcome to another Happy English podcast coming to you from New York City. And here's your English teacher, Michael.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks, everyone. It's Michael here from Happy English, and I help people speak English better. And this is Happy English Podcast, episode 791. Phrasal verbs related to starting. It's been a while since we looked at phrasal verbs, and since the start of the year, I've been thinking about kicking off a lesson with them. For today's podcast English lesson, let's have a look at a group of phrasal verbs related to starting something. I've kind of categorized these start phrasal verbs into a few groups, and I think it would be fun to kind of go through them that way. So let's start with technology, like technology back in the good old days. Do you remember in the 1990s when you had to boot up your computer? You know, the days of floppy disks and dial-up internet? Boot up the computer. But you know, it's interesting because we really don't say that anymore, do we? Booting up a computer was like when you started the machine, inserted some floppy disks, and waited a while for the desktop to show up. I know that computers still boot up, but it happens in the blink of an eye, and luckily without those floppy disks. In a similar way, we have fire up, which also means to start a machine. Like on a hot summer evening, you can fire up the grill and have a barbecue. Or you fire up the oven. Something that gets hot, you can fire up. Even a heater. Even though there's no actual fire, you can still fire it up. You're firing up the pizza oven. And in a figurative way, you can say that you fire up a group of people. When you fire up a team at work or a bunch of your friends, you get them excited and enthusiastic about something. You fire them up. Speaking of being enthusiastic, when you start a task or an activity eagerly, you dive into it. My mom couldn't wait to dive into that book when she brought it home from the library. I downloaded a new language learning app so I can dive into learning Japanese writing. It's interesting. When I was a student, I didn't like to study. But now, as an adult, I love to dive into whatever I'm learning. And then, when it comes to the basic activation of anything electronic, we have turn on or switch on. Both of them have the same idea of getting the machine ready for use. You can turn on the TV or switch on a light. Or turn on the air conditioner, switch on the computer, and so on. With turn on and switch on, you're giving energy to those machines. And speaking of energy, when you have a sudden burst of action or emotion, maybe you will break into song, which basically means that you suddenly start singing. Or when you hear a funny joke, you can break into laughter. That happens to me a lot when I watch a comedian like Ismo. Next up, let's talk about starting a journey. When you do that, you can set off. You can set off on a trip or set off for a place. Like Nick set off on his road trip early in the morning to avoid traffic. And this morning, my sister set off for the airport. She's going to Florida and then setting off on a cruise for 10 days. Well, I hope you got fired up from these phrasal verbs. Keep in mind, the best way to remember vocabulary like this, and any other word or phrase in English, is to take that word or phrase, write it in a sentence that's true for you or true in your world, and then memorize your sentences. Hey, did you know you can get more practice using your English when you join my Podcast Learners Study Group? There, you can make new friends. Join us for live group lessons every week where we practice these podcast lessons together. Plus, you get access to the PDF transcript and audio download for every Happy English podcast in the past and in the future. And on top of that, each episode has exercises where you can practice this English point with speaking and writing checked by me. To learn more, just visit myhappyenglish.com and choose podcast lesson 791. Remember, learning another language is not easy, but it's not impossible. And I'm here to help you on your journey.
This podcast was brought to you by Happy English. Please visit myhappyenglish.com. Show your support for Happy English by leaving us a review. Get English, get happy, Happy English.